saying that United still has not responded. Okay, so United Way has not responded. There's that funding piece today. It's on our regular list of legislation from last week. They still have not responded. The wireless. Okie dokie. Okay, we'll begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. I would request a roll call, please.
Fusco.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Connor. Boyes.
Aye.
Hannah.
Aye.
All committee members are present.
Very good, thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion. We accept the minutes of the last meeting.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good, the ayes have it. Okay, we'll look at this agenda, today's agenda, and I'm going to request time on it and move into the new list of legislation. Ms. Viviano, could you please read in the first item?
Item number 1 is an ordinance accepting the eligibility report for the Meridian Urban Renewal Area, approving the Meridian Urban Renewal Area Plan, and making necessary findings in connection therewith and declaring an emergency.
Okay, thank you very much. This is up for public hearing on June 3rd, correct?
That is correct.
All those in favor of referring signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good. The ayes will have it on referring that particular item, item number 1. Item number 2.
Item number 2 is an ordinance approving the historic designation of 816 East Market Street, Omier Universal Building as a historic landmark and declaring an emergency.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mulhauser, I see, is here.
Yes. Good afternoon, Planning Committee members. The Homeyer Universal Building was constructed in 1919 as a large 3-story shop with an attached showroom for a Ford automobile dealership. The building plan is a simple open-plan warehouse with exposed masonry walls and a cast-in-place concrete structural system. The building was constructed as a fireproof building and likely utilized a unique floor style construction technique. At one time, the Homeyer Universal Company was the largest operating Ford dealership in Akron, and the East Market Street address was the headquarters of the company. The existing building is in deteriorated condition and used primarily for storage. The sales building, which originally extended all the way out to East Exchange Street, was mostly demoed with only about a third of the original structure remaining. The owner of the building is planning to renovate the structure utilizing historic tax credits through the State of Ohio Historic Preservation Office. If designated, any activity affecting the exterior of the Homeyer Universal Building not covered under an agreement with the State Preservation Office will require a certificate of appropriateness from the City of Akron Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission. Any demolition of the existing structure or additions or additional entranceways will also require a certificate of appropriateness. The Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission found that the property meets criteria outlined in the City of Akron Urban Design and Historic Preservation Ordinance to define a historic landmark. The planning staff, Urban Design, and Planning Commission recommend approval.
Why, thank you for that report. Question, what's the intended use going to be? Recognizing that the tax credits are going to be utilized. And is there a limited amount of tax credits per city, or how does that work on the historic tax credit side?
It's the historic tax credit. I'm not totally an expert on this, but I believe it's on a competition basis based on points. So it's not allocated by city. It's strictly like this is how much money we have and this is how much we're going to allocate. So it is.
I thought it was. Yeah. Thank you.
And the intended use is going to be primarily an office use with some retail capacity in the ground floor. A food hall? Okay. Yeah, with like a food hall on the initial floor. And upstairs things will be mostly office space, I believe. It will be a very nice renovation. I mean, it's not going to look anything like the building now, which is pretty much just a square 6-story warehouse. This will add windows to the front, landscaping on the exterior. If you need any more information, for that, we could supply you with it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not going to look the same whenever, we'll recognize it.
It's actually going to be an improvement over the historic look.
It's historic, interesting. Questions from anyone else? Reference to this? You have a question?
Not a question, just a comment. I've seen the drawings. The area is a big hub of traffic, walkable traffic and bus traffic and a lot of pedestrians, so that's part of the food hall philosophy with it. And we're real familiar with the work that the well has done, so I would be all for this.
Yeah. Thank you. Are they in a hurry for this?
I don't think so, no.
Could you share those plans with the committee, please? I can invite them to come. Okay, yeah. And I don't have necessarily a problem. I don't think they need to come in. Okay. We got checkoff from the Historic Preservation Commission, and the planning department is recommending approval. Obviously, Sharon Connor, you're recommending approval. So I don't really necessarily, I just think that we should see what the plan is before we go. Yes, Kyle.
Just a clarification, the end product is pretty much is still in flux in terms of design and those pieces as, sort of matching up financing and costs and things like that. So we don't have a final plan yet. He's not ready in any way to go like for building permits or anything like that. So, but we do have preliminary,
Absolutely, yeah, and most of these are usually
yeah.
we see them, so yeah. I have a very bad joke I'm not going to say. I'll tell you in private, Kyle. Okay, cool. Questions, anyone? Is there a motion for suspension of the rules?
I'll make that motion for suspension of the rules, please.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, very good. The ayes have it. Item number 3.
Item number 3 is an ordinance approving the historic designation of 242 Lake Street, Brown Family Home, as a historic landmark and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Mulhauser?
The subject property is a 2-story home located at 242 Lake Street. According to the Summit County Auditor's Office, the single-family residence located at 242 Lake Street was constructed in 1913. This was during the 10-year period when Akron's population exploded from 69,000 in 1910 to 208,000 in 1920, making Akron the United States' fastest-growing city in the United States. The home is located in Akron's Summit Lake neighborhood. In 1966, James Allen Brown Sr. and Johnny Elaine Brown Foster purchased the home in a historically redlined area. Moving into the home with their 5 children, a 6th daughter was born later in the home. The Browns family story traces back to Georgia for their mother and Oklahoma for their father. James and Johnny Elaine were both born in Akron in February 1939, after both of their families had moved to Akron as part of the Great Migration of over 6 million African-American families from the southern United States to the Northeast, Midwest, and West between 1910 and 1970. The close bond of the family and their ties to the community are evident in the application. The application for designation has been submitted by the Brown family after the passing of their parents. The application grows into a great amount of detail to document growing up in the community by Summit Lake. The Browns' family history in the home and neighborhood exemplifies the story of many African-American families in Akron and across the United States in the 1960s. The home itself is built in the Akron Vernacular II style. Popular between 1900 and 1920, this house style is numerous and seen in variations throughout the older sections of Akron. It is a predominant house type in Summit Lake. The home is in very good condition with a well-maintained corner side yard enclosed with a chain link fence. If designated, any demolition of the existing structure or additions or additional entranceways will require a certificate of appropriateness. The Urban Design and Historic Preservation Commission found the property meets criteria outlined in the City of Akron Urban Design and Historic Preservation Ordinance to define a historic landmark. The planning staff, Urban Design, and Planning Commission recommend approval. Thank you.
Okay, sir, thank you for your report. I see here there's, first, any questions from anyone? Yes, Tina Boyce?
Does the family still own the property?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
I see here we have some redlining, the red line part of this, of the findings and conclusions piece. Can you please explain some of this for me, for the
Well,
committee?
at the time, that was mostly a white middle to upper middle class neighborhood through the 1940s into the 1950s. Summit Lake Amusement Park at the time was actually segregated at that time, where you had white-only days and then other days where other minorities could actually attend the park. The Brown family was one of the earlier African-American families, if not the earliest, to move into that neighborhood. And that kind of did open the door for other families to move in, but they were one of the earlier black families in the Summit Lake neighborhood. And at that time, that was right when the transition to that neighborhood was happening, that 76 came in and kind of split the neighborhood from north to south, where it used to kind of go all the way up to Barges Street and the Goodrich factory. So that happened in the 60s. After that, there was some gradual, the amusement park closed in the 50s, and there was a gradual disinvestment through the present period, really, over the next 50 years.
Okay. That helps. Mr. Julian, do you have any comments?
I would just like to share that the process through which this application has been shepherded to this point has been not the smoothest, and we had some challenges with the applicant related to the application itself, the process, and this was really an application that was forwarded by the family. Usually we are talking with consultants, and we're talking with architects or people steeped in historic preservation techniques and language and skill sets. And so because of that, there was kind of a talking past one another, if you will, and to the point where at times the Brown family representative, Dr. Brown, was frustrated. And so, we've expressed our regrets for that frustration, and certainly there was no intentionality there. We fully support the idea that this is a historic structure. It's steeped in the history of Summit Lake and Black Akron. And so, there's no question there from the planning staff, or indeed Planning Commission, or Urban Design. And so we are addressing the shortcomings of the application and how it rolls out in those pieces so that we can have greater clarity moving forward. Again, we regret that there was that kind of ambiguity in the application process, having to do with the nature of what constitutes architectural significance versus historical significance. And so we hope that council will and this committee will see the historical significance and advance it, and we will do better moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Julian. And I see here, but I don't see it within the ordinance itself, but item number 6 within the findings and conclusion piece that was read to us under the, I guess this was under the comments section for the Planning Commission on item number 6, and I think this is where you're going with this, embodies the distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type of specimen. And then that's 6. And then 7, I believe, and this is where I think you're speaking to, contains elements of design, detail, materials, or craftsmanship which represent a significant architectural or structural innovation. So is that what you're speaking about? And that's where that expertise, bringing somebody in, will someone who's trained, has a trained eye, I guess, can identify those elements. Because I think the story itself is very compelling, and the story behind it, and understand that piece of it. But so that's where some of the concerns are. Any committee members? Okay, I'm not hearing any committee members. Ms. Mobian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Being that I know absolutely nothing about how you go about starting the process, what comes with it when they get the designation of historic significance or whatever it's called. Are there any funds available to them to preserve the structure or to upgrade it, or I don't know what happens after this?
Mr. Julian?
No, I mean, generally, local landmark designation just signifies it's a local landmark. Even a state designation doesn't attach any financial kind of assistance to anything that's listed as on the National Register or a local landmark. More, it's just the local landmark actually gives us some control over the future of the building, at least in terms of demolition or alterations that take place, depending on the specific structure and what we write into the ordinances to allowable alterations to the existing building. This building is more on the family history than the actual significance of the house itself. The thing that makes it compelling is just the history of the family in the house. As Mr. Julian said, there was a little bit of indecision between us and the applicant as to what exactly the check marks were for the qualifications. We could go back to urban design to clarify that if need be, just for the file. But in terms of moving forward as a local landmark, no, there's no financial assistance. I do believe that the owners of the property would like to apply to the state for future grants to kind of tell the history of the neighborhood and the history of the family in the house. But that is kind of a totally separate thing that doesn't really involve us. That would be through the State Preservation Office.
Yeah.
May I follow up, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So would the city of Akron be able to help the family in any way to do anything? It sounds like it's started off on the wrong foot. However, you want to say that. It just sounds like a misunderstanding. Is there a marker or something put at the house? I know you talk about the historical significance. It sounds like it may go to the library, that information, in different places like that. So as a city, we could do something to partner with this family to preserve this history and to help them figure out how to write it or whatever we could do. Is there anything that we can do as a city?
We've had discussions before just about like the landmarking process, and I believe back in the 70s, there are a few houses that I know are over in near West Akron that have a little plaque like on the building for some sort of, we don't have anything like that now, but that is something we could look into. If they are applying for any kind of future grants, we could always listen to what it is they want to do and see if we want to, assist it in any way. We don't really have anything set up like that now specifically, but I mean, we always could entertain that.
Oh, interesting. Mr. Julian, did you have any comments?
Yeah, I think that covers it. We don't really have a structured program at this time.
Approximately how much? I in no way ever. Ms. Amovian, did you have any more comments?
No, they answered my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to discount whatsoever that story about the redlining and, the migration. That's, like I said, very good story. But do you know approximately, and I think we are beginning, and we spent some funds in terms of telling that story about the Summit Lake area. There's been quite a bit. About how much have we spent in the area beginning to tell that story? Because that's going to be part of it, I have to believe, after everything is completed with the neighborhood, with the improvements to the park, to the, that northern shore area along the.
So I think if you think of these, where Summit Lake is today as, definitely a product of segregation, redlining, and sort of the structured disinvestment from black neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
That's a component that we acknowledge in all of our planning activities in that neighborhood, as well as how we're talking about the inner belt.
Right.
And those are kind of, they're closely related and would be much more closely related if it weren't for the fact that there's two freeways standing between, those areas. And so, well, I don't have the dollar figure in terms of the planning, but we kind of place a great deal of emphasis on that history as we think about revitalization activities moving forward. We keep that top of mind when we think about
And I
what's
think,
next.
yeah, we've seen that, and all of us have, I believe, in terms of being supportive of the efforts over there and telling that story, and I don't know if we're doing a good enough job or not. I see President Somerville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to also add that Dan Rice has helped tremendously.
Absolutely.
Where they did a lot of video recordings of people who lived in the neighborhood, who lived in the neighborhood, to really share the story of Summit Lake. So we have been documenting the history.
Outstanding. And I think that's the thing I think we'd like to learn maybe a little bit more in terms of how we're documenting, I guess. Documenting and telling that story, because I know that's a piece of this application. But like I said, it's the rest of the story, I guess, and getting it out is the most important piece, and how we do that. Did Sharon Conner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to share that as part of Dave Lewis and Mark Greer's presentation last week, there are historical landmark signage as part of the bicentennial coming up next year. So this house would certainly be a part of that, could be a part of that.
Interesting. Yeah, and if you see other cities, you do see it's like a marker type thing, but it tells the age of the structure in just a brief sentence or something like that. Yes. Tina Boyes?
I did have one more question, because I do know a little bit about this, not a lot. As far as local landmark status, I know that protects the structure from demolition. It adds a layer of protection,
Federal.
I should say. But my other question is, from what I've understood, local landmark status makes it the rules rather stringent for making alterations to the property. Is that the case? Is that true in this case, and is the family aware of what they can and can't do with their house should this become a local landmark?
Because we're documenting this as its historical significance, we have a little bit of leeway in terms of, how the certificate of appropriateness for changes moving forward. And I believe, what Mr. Mulhauser is including in those guidelines moving forward is we don't want to see it demolished, but we recognize too that it's actually changed quite a bit from when it was built. And so, we're not locking it into a moment with this designation. We're just saying that, there's a house here that's got historical significance. It's not that frozen in amber kind of thing, where you've got to bring it back to 1912 or whatever. So we're not saying that, and we won't be enforcing that moving forward.
I see. Thank you.
Seems like the neighborhood has the. And quick question for you, under the designation, should it move forward, say they apply to the state, then it would automatically go to the feds. And oftentimes, whenever the feds get a recommendation from the state, they usually follow that, from what I understand. But secondly, if I understand this correctly or not, but in essence, what it will do is protect that house, in this case, from any federal funds being spent there unless it complies with certain rules that are promulgated by the federal government. Okay. But then again, if the individuals that own the house, if they wish to spend their own money and in any way they wish, in terms of even putting on, say, for example, the power panels, I can't remember the solar, thank you, solar panels, they could still do that if it's their own money and not federal funds. So that's, from what I understand, that's my understanding how it works. But I see Linda Mobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing me again. One of the things I don't want us to lose sight of, what's so significant about this to me is the family initiated this And we want to make sure that we're preserving whatever it is that they want to preserve as historical value, and whatever we can do to help them move their initiative forward. It seems to me to be a plus. I don't know how many people are savvy enough to do this. When you are, and is that significant, hopefully the city would do everything we can to support them. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? I sense that perhaps we need to study this further, and I would like to ask for a recommendation for to refer this item. Second? I'll second. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? Very good. The ayes have it. Sarah Biviano, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Our next committee today will be the Parks and Recreation Committee, and it will begin at 1:45. Those committee members are Connor, Lombardo, Hardy, Hannah, and Boyes. Again, that's the Parks and Recreation Committee, and it will begin at 1:45. Thank you.
I'd like to call the Parks and Recreation Committee to order. Sarah, if you could do a roll call, please.
Connor,
Aye.
Lombardo,
Aye.
Hardy,
Here.
Hannah,
Aye.
Boys.
Aye.
All committee members are present.
Thank you. May I have a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting?
Motion to accept meeting
Is there a
minutes.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have one item coming before us today, item number 15 under the new legislation. It's an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into contract or contracts with the formality of public advertising for bids with the Akron Parks Collaborative for professional and supplemental services related to the improvements of certain parks in the city of Akron and declaring an emergency. We have with us Mr. Lash and Bridget Ambrusco from Parks Collaborative. Feel free.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of council. This is our contract for Akron's Parks Collaborative, and I have Bridget Ambrusco here, and she's going to speak to that in more depth.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me, Committee Chair Connor and committee. So I will tell you first, thank you so much for your partnership since 2018 with Akron Parks Collaborative as we work to revitalize our city parks. We continue to just be motivated by the kind of change that we're having in people's lives. Parks are so important and essential for our city, and we really believe they're the building blocks for better neighborhoods. I've gotten to work with many of you in different capacities, and we've seen that firsthand with the activity that's happening in some of the parks that we've worked on, and I'm looking forward to working with many of you on future parks. We know there are so many important priorities in the city, and improving our neighborhood parks are part of the long game for a safer, healthier, and more vibrant Akron. So this year, we're focused on the challenge, which many of you know that we're right in the middle of, selecting 2 more parks for the next Akron Parks Challenge to get deep engagement, find out what the neighborhood wants, and make positive change in those neighborhoods. We're supporting more and more friends groups. So with each park that we've worked on and some additional, we have about 11 friends groups that we're working with across the city who are stewarding their parks and activating their spaces. We're also working on maintenance of some of the parks that we've worked on. We really want to make sure, and so do our friends groups, that our parks are well maintained, and some of the improvements that they've made, a lot of them community gardens and landscaping. We have committed to volunteer groups that we organize to make those spaces look good. And we're also piloting a couple of different youth corps programs in 2 different parks. So at Jewett Park, we're working with Lynx to help pay their youth ambassadors to maintain their parks. So these are kids that live in the neighborhood. Already working with the Lynx group, and we're partnering with those to support the neighborhood groups. And then in Morgan Park as well, we're working with South Street Ministries to pay a couple of kids in the neighborhood to help maintain those parks as well. So they're also getting some other training opportunities through South Street Ministries, and we're sort of piloting it, but really think that kids in their own neighborhood working on their neighborhood parks is important. We also have been working with some folks in the city towards a master plan, a citywide parks master plan for the city, putting equity at the forefront so that we have a true blueprint going forward, sort of showing us the path towards improving our parks and improving our neighborhoods. And then we sort of get involved in a variety of things from there, depending on what they might be. For instance, we recently got funding to add new components to the Joy Park splash pad. We also received a donation of 20 wonderful bike racks, so trying to figure out where those go. So just sort of a variety of things that we try to make happen in the neighborhoods. So that's a summary of what we're going to be working on in 2024. Again, thanks for your support, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from committee members? Go down the row. Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to stand up on this one. I truly hope the city supports the Park Collaborative because they have been an intricate part of this city, and without our parks, we don't have youth that will go into these areas and play. And that's a healthy thing to have our youth, especially in the inner city, to come out and enjoy the parks. And I would just like to speak about Morgan Park. Morgan Park is taking shape at this point, and for council persons and citizens, if you have an opportunity, just come out to Morgan Park and see what's happening there. And I'd just like to say, Bridget has been doing an excellent job with supporting Morgan Park. And I just want to say council members and community and the legislators should support the Parks Collaborative. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman.
No, actually, he said it all. Bridget has done a fine job, and the Parks Collaborative program, if you will, has been very beneficial to every ward. I can't say just Ward 2 and Ward 5, but it's been great. Bridget, nice job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ward 9 has also been a recipient of Parks Collaborative grant at Chestnut Ridge Park, and it's the park I grew up across the street from that my mom wouldn't let me play at back in like the 70s and 80s because it was so dangerous. And now it feels like a revived space that is for kids and for families, so I want to thank you for that. A quick question about the current round. For those who are unaware, what is the schedule for the current round of Parks Challenge applicants? Thanks.
Sure. So by the end of this week, those that made it to the second round will know if they made it to the final round, and that's typically 4 or 3 parks. And so at that point, they'll get notified, and we schedule, I think, in 2 weeks, site visits. So our board will go and visit those parks. We always encourage them to bring everybody they plan to work with and get engaged, because it's really all about, like, how can you help us engage the community around your park? So, so at that point, then pretty much that evening, the board then meets to make some decisions. We'll make an announcement by mid-June, though, at the latest.
Councilman Hardy, you have a question or comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will ditto again Councilman Hanna's comments. I think it's nothing short of amazing what the Parks Collaborative and you, particularly Bridget, have been able to accomplish since the founding of APC. My question is around the Parks Master Plan. I'm really supportive of this idea. We've proven that we can do big things for our parks with Lock 3 and Summit Lake, but we know that we've been sort of slow but steady in the neighborhood parks, and this is an opportunity to get, in my mind, almost do something similar for neighborhood parks like we did for the downtown plan, where city partners with a nonprofit organization that's closer to the ground and develops a blueprint for how we can get after a really important asset like our neighborhood park. So I'm wondering if you, Bridget, or Director Lash or others in the administration might speak to, like, how realistic is the master plan and how quickly can we get it fully funded and on its way?
Well, actually, Councilman Hardy, that's a great question. I actually have Jim Ashley here, who we have the benefit of working with him and his team in OID, which you're fully aware of. We haven't really had that conversation yet in this administration. We're actually speaking to that, and I'm asking Jim if he would actually speak to that. Maybe he can answer some questions, has a different insight.
It wasn't in the budget this year. It was considered, so this is like the first step working with Bridget on this, so it will be considered again for next year in 2025. So we will have funding under the capital budget.
I would like to add as well that we're committed to raising additional funds necessary. So while we think it could be around a $200,000 fee is what we've sort of determined looking at other cities our size and what they're doing, you know, we think we can commit to raising half of that. Similar, as James said, to Downtown Akron Partnership, being the community partner, we would definitely want to be that community partner, engaging the communities, making sure that it's, intense engagement, but also putting that equity piece at the forefront to determine what it is, where the parks are that need it most, and kind of coming up with priority list from there, and also, cost estimates, things like that, so we know what the future would hold.
And if I could just add to that, this is an important goal that we do have to achieve these goals as far as the master plan, the parks master plan, et cetera. So it is in vision. We just have to, as was spoken earlier, raise the funds necessary to go after this. So thank you for raising that point, Councilman.
Are there any questions from other council members?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Lash and Bridget, for your work, and of course, Jim Ashley. I made a phone call last week to the planning department, and someone didn't return my phone call yet. So I'll ask it now. The $305,000, what's that actually for? Is it for the parks improvements this year, or is it also for like salaries or supplies?
There's a breakdown, and Bridget, if you want to speak to that.
Sure. So that does include salaries for our staff, for program support. It also does include some capital funds. We've found it necessary to sort of, for, especially the challenge projects we're working on, supplement some of that and have that kind of flexibility. It also supports our work with the friends groups throughout the cities, the stewardship groups, that type of thing. So all of the work that I just talked about is supporting that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Can we get that breakdown? Is it possible?
It shouldn't be a problem.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Shouldn't be a
Is it good? Okay,
Yes.
I appreciate it. No, I'm in full support. I appreciate what you folks do. I just noticed that not just this piece of legislation, but there's been some coming through us with dollar amounts that just really don't explain the itemized pieces. So I'm going to start bringing those questions up. So nothing against you folks, but thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Other questions? Comment from myself, having been part of the Parks Challenge probably close to since it started. The difference they make in the community is amazing. And also the engagement. I mean, it's easy to say we want to build a park, but when you're building a park for the public, there's so many pieces you don't know. And Bridget and her team were delightful in getting that community engagement, answering all those questions. It's far different than putting a swing in your backyard that you might use a couple hours a week when you're building it for 500 kids every day. So having that guidance and that support was critical, and having the continued support through the Friends group has just been phenomenal, not only with the parks that win the Park Challenge, but all the parks. Her and her team are great. You call and ask a question and boom, it's right there. So I am so grateful that not only you came to Ward 10, but that all of your work in this city. So with that, what's your pleasure? Suspension of the rules?
Suspension of rules, fine.
May I have a motion for suspension of the rules? A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll take care of this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.
Our next committee will be the Rules Committee, and it will begin at 2 o'clock. Those committee members are McKittrick, Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Davis. Again, that's the Rules Committee, and it will begin at 2 o'clock. Thank you. Okay, we're ready to begin the Rules Committee. Again, those committee members are McKittrick, Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Davis. You have all committee members present except for Councilwoman Davis. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I'd like to call the Rules Committee to order. Could I get a motion to accept our previous minutes?
So moved.
So moved. Second?
All in favor? Aye? Any opposed? Okay. We had a piece before that was passed and went on the consent agenda and was pulled, and we had some time to have some presentation on it, and we're going to have a little bit more talk on it today. So the ordinance amending and supplementing Title IX General Provisions, Chapter 106, Prohibition of Conversion Therapy on Minors, Section 106.03 of the Code of Ordinance of the City of Akron, in order to impose a first-degree misdemeanor penalty where the commission of the offense of conversion therapy to minors and declaring an emergency. It was previously withdrawn, and we're going to get a little bit more information on it. Who's going to speak today?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Kirsten Smith, Assistant Director of Law. Last week, the mayor, members of his administration, and some council leadership met with some LGBTQ plus advocacy groups. We had a couple conversations. We had a productive conversation about why the criminal penalty is the best enforcement mechanism here in our city with the way we're able to investigate and enforce this ordinance. And we feel, we're ready to move forward, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any committee members that have any questions or comments? Okay. Linda Mobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want my name added again. I'm assuming that you took out the civil service investigative piece. The thinking behind that.
Linda, could you say that again? You were breaking up a little bit.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. I want my name added again to the piece. And I see that you removed the investigative authority of the Civil Service Civil Rights Commission. And just talk a little bit about why that was removed. Could you hear me?
Yeah, I didn't catch the very end of what you said, but there are no changes to this from what we presented, introduced on May 3rd.
There was something that was stricken out. Close to the bottom where you took away the investigative authority of the commission. Did I see it correctly?
Right, as it was originally enacted in 2022, I believe, the Civil Rights Commission was tasked with enforcing these investigations. The amendment before you today transfers that to the law enforcement in our prosecutor's office.
I see. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councilwoman. Are there any other questions by any committee members or council members? Okay, hearing none. This was previously on the consent agenda. Would it be okay to place back on the consent agenda, or do you have something else in mind?
No, that would be fine. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Recommend consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye? Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, we'll get that back on the consent agenda. Thanks so much. Have nothing further to come before rules. We will be adjourned. Thank you.
Our next committee will be the Public Service Committee. Those committee members are Kamer, McKittrick, DeShazier, Hardy, and Lombardo. And we'll get started in just a moment here. Thank you. Again, on our next committee today is the Public Service Committee. Those committee members are Kamer, McKittrick, DeShazier, Hardy, and Lombardo. You do have all committee members present except for Councilman DeShazier and Councilman Lombardo is coming in now, but you do have a quorum if you're ready to begin, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I'd like to call the public service meeting to order, please. We didn't have a meeting last week, but 2 weeks ago we did, and I was wondering if we can get approval of those minutes, please.
Motion to approve previous minutes.
Can I get a second?
Second?
All in favor of the minutes? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We have several new pieces in front of us today. I'm going to actually ask Sarah if she could read these in for me. I'd appreciate it so we can move along.
Item number 4 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of advertising for bids with Jacobs Engineering Group, Inc. for professional consulting services in support of the Fixed Network Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And today we have our Service Director, Chris Lotto, with us. Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. This is another year extension to Jacobs Engineering Group. They have been working with us to manage the water meter replacement program, AMI. We are just over 50% completed with the residential meters, and everything is moving along. The next piece that you're going to hear is about also managing the program and inspection. But Jacobs has been a great help to us. We brought them on last year to work between the UMS, the contractor, us, and the citizens alone, the residents, and best practices of installing these meters and getting them up and working. So this is just a year extension to their contract, and we fully anticipate this time next year to be completed with the project.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Committee members, any questions or comments for Chris? Any other council members in chambers? All right. I think they do a pretty good job, so I appreciate that. Good feedback. What's your pleasure on this, Chris?
Consent's fine, sir.
Consent? All right, committee?
Motion for consent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for consent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Sarah, could you read in number 5, please?
Sure. Item number 5 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contracts, I thought I was reading in the same one again, sorry, without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Akron Energy Systems, LLC, for professional consulting services in support of the Fixed Network Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. Yes, this contract is another year extension with Akron Energy System. Obviously, you know they run our downtown district energy system, and they have inspectors that have this same technology. So we leveraged them last year to come in and help us with the inspection portion of this project. So there again, they have inspectors. It's true cost. They do not mark up the inspectors. It's just they pass those on to us. And then they are out there in the field, not only following up with the contractor, but they're working with our staff on getting these meters installed.
All right, thank you. Committee members, anything for Chris? Any other council members? All right, Chris, is consent okay on this?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Motion for consent?
Second?
I have a motion, a second for consent. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to number 6, Sarah.
Item number 6 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids to repair and rehabilitate the laboratory roof and HVAC system located at the Water Reclamation Facility and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. Yes, down at WRF, we are upgrading our HVAC system in the lab, which is 5 ventilation fans and 1 rooftop HVAC unit. We are going to re-roof this as we pull this equipment off the roof and install new. So the equipment, the ventilation equipment is over 50 years old. It's past its useful life. We did have this in the capital budget as miscellaneous repairs to WRF. And with that, I'll take any questions. Consent will be fine, though, sir.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Luddle? Council members? What's the price tag on this?
It is. Cedar Plains.
400,000?
I think it was. Yes, 400,000.
Okay. No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Chris said consent agenda is okay.
Motion for consent?
Second?
I have a motion and a second for consent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Number 7.
Item number 7 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, without the formality of publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts with a consultant or consultants for the design of Kent Street Bridge replacement and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. Yes, this legislation will allow us to enter into a contract with a consulting firm, an engineering firm, to design the replacement of the Kent Street Bridge. We did receive $550,000 of bridge funds for this project. Was awarded to us last year. So we're going through the formality now, whether we're going to take the whole deck off and just replace, or just do a rehab of the deck. This will be determined at the time of design. How many of the beams have to be replaced. This is over the Little Cauga River. This design is about $125,000, which half of that will come out of the bridge funds and the other half will be out of general obligation.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that. Committee members, anything for Chris? I see Councilman Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment that bridge funds are really, really, really hard to get, as we know, and we keep getting them. So kudos, Chris, to you and your team for honestly outperforming any other municipality that I'm aware of.
Well, thank you. You're correct to how difficult they are, Councilman. We did receive them last year. We applied a while ago to get these funds, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Consent okay?
Consent is fine.
Committee?
Motion for consent?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Sarah, could you read an 8, please?
Number 8 is an ordinance approving the report of the Assessment Equalization Board selected pursuant to Section 53.03 of the Code of Ordinances of the City and Resolution Number 59/2024 to hear and determine all objections to the special assessments for the improvement of Patterson Avenue between the termini of Winnipeg Street and 115 feet south of Boyle Street, Thornton Street between the termini of Dart Avenue and Grant Street, Inman Street between the termini of Wilbeth Road and Lovers Lane, Cole Avenue between the termini of Brown Street and Arlington Street, Allendale Avenue between the termini of Cooper Avenue and Wilbeth Road, and Brown Street between the termini of East Dresden Avenue and 10 feet north of Wayne Avenue by the repair of concrete pavement, determining to proceed with the improvement and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. Yes, this council passed the resolution to improve these concrete street segments back on March 4th. We did go through the assessment process to send a notice to the budding property owners of what their assessment would be. We did have a hearing on May 9th, and this is to approve the recommendations of that board. So this is our notice to proceed. We did bid this. We got a very favorable price from Trimore. They're ready to begin after this legislation's passed. Respectively, sir, I would ask for suspension of rules so we can get going on this contract.
All right, thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. I appreciate the city moving forward to address our concrete streets. Is this our second year doing this?
Third.
Third, okay. Thank you. And yeah, I think it's really important, and I'm excited that we are addressing the concrete streets in our city. So I really support this, so thank you.
Thank you.
Committee members, Councilman Lombardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Luddle, just a little education here. When you had that hearing, the members that were objecting obviously presented their case, and apparently it wasn't a good case. and that's why we're moving forward with this. Is that correct?
There was 2 that objected to their assessment, yes.
Oh,
And,
okay. So that's the way,
I mean, if it's where it doesn't benefit the property owner, where maybe sometimes a side street, they have no access, that could be a reasonable request not to assess them. But when some say that they don't think it's warranted, typically that is not a reasonable request to honor that request.
okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other committee members? All right, I see Councilwoman Linda Mobian. Your hand is raised.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just curious, I would imagine that these are quite expensive. What's the kind of assessment fee, Mr. Luttle?
It goes by your front foot and how much you're affected. I can get an average for you on that, whether it's residential, commercial. There's differing rates if it's an arterial or a residential street, but I'll get you that, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions or comments? Councilman Hanna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What do you do when the resident objects to the assessment and they say they can't afford that assessment? What do you do?
Well, we do spread it out on their taxes. They don't have to pay for it all at once. We spread it out over years on their taxes. So once they do that, typically they understand that that they can, instead of paying it all up at front, they can spread it out over 5 years.
Is this relayed to them in some kind of way that they can understand that, say, when you send the bills out?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so all that information is on the bill?
Absolutely. And what'll happen is we'll do the work this year. There's a year warranty, so they won't be actually given a bill till next year. And then it'll go on their taxes the following year. So they have plenty of time to prepare. It's almost a year and a half before they actually are assessed.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Luttle? All right, he did request us to consider suspension of the rules.
I'll make that motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
All in favor of suspension of the rules?
Aye.
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 All right, anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving forward on to number 9.
Item number 9 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract after publicly advertising for bids, requesting and receiving requests for proposals, requesting and receiving quotes, and/or self-performing work for miscellaneous facility improvements at the Municipal Service Center, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of committee. Yes. Every year, we put about $250,000 in the Municipal Service Center for miscellaneous improvements. Some of the things we did last year is, as you remember, we had to replace the steps going up to the cleaning area for the trash trucks. They were rotted out and it was unsafe for our employees. Some of the improvements that we're going to do this year with these funds it's mostly around security. So we are going to put electric motors on all our gates so at night they can be closed. As police come in to get fuel, or our emergency workers are working at night, but after they leave, the gates will close. Because we've had some people come into our yard at night, and we've come up with some equipment that was stolen a couple years ago, if you remember. Some of the other things is just security into the building. Some of our doors where our public works employees go into are not locked all the time, so now they're all going to have card readers on them like this building, so as the people come and go out of the building, we'll know who's coming and going. Because we do get employees that get called in the middle of the night, and that way we'll know who's going into the storeroom or into the building. Another thing that we do with these funds is just miscellaneous HVAC equipment upgrades, whether it's a heater or an air conditioner that fails over the year. These funds supplement those type of items at Public Works.
All right, sounds good. All right, committee members, any questions or comments for Mr. Luttle? Any other council members? All right, is consent okay on this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Committee?
Motion for consent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for consent agenda. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to number 10.
Item number 10 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service to enter into a contract or contracts with G. Stevens, Inc. for professional engineering services for the Akron Waterways Renewed Program Management Team and declaring an emergency.
Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. This amendment to G. Stevens Incorporated is for our program management for our AWR CSO program. Historically, this program has been a lot more money. We have slowly taken more of this work in-house, and as you know, as the projects get closer and closer to completion, we have 26 projects that we had to get finished by 2027, and we have 24 of those done. So tunnel is going on right now. We've talked about the high-rate treatment facility at the end of the OSIT tunnel that we are negotiating right now with the federal court. But some of the things that G. Stevens has done for us over the years, and years ago, this contract was between $6 and $8 million, so it's about half, and about 15% of this cost that you see here goes to sub-consultants for our modeling. We are constantly upgrading our system, our modeling, and what it's doing in these overflows, and the real-time control, and how we can manage this whole program. So they do prepare and submit our consent decree semi-annual reports that we have to submit to the federal court. They provide our document management. They provide public outreach on special programming support. They help us tremendously with our Blue Heron, which you're going to see a bunch of releases on real soon. It's June 15th. It's at the Muscle Store this year. We'd love for all you to come down on that Saturday. They also manage our All Akron Student Engineering Program, which this is the 9th year. It's for Akron, City of Akron juniors and seniors. This year we have 37 students. Those students are placed with our consultants, our engineering firms, but First Energy has taken a few of these students. Akron General Cleveland Clinic has taken these students. I think we have one here maybe today with Pat and Jenny back there. I think she's an Akron student engineering. They manage our diversity program in all the phases. They have outreach programs for certified businesses. They help businesses that aren't certified. How do they go down the path to get certified? So there's a lot of things that they have done over the years that have leveraged, whether it's things that we are doing internally or externally, and it's been a great partnership. They also manage our B2G tracker, which is tracking all the primes, and then it makes sure all their subcontractors are meeting their goals for the minority businesses or women-based industry or the small business industry. So the city has developed 4 annual inclusion-focused outreach events. They prepare all the workshops and the semi-annual reports, and they have come and delivered to you updates over the years. So this is a 2-year agreement, and hopefully at the end of this agreement we'll have more news for you. The tunnel will be close to being finished and where we're at on that other project. So.
All right, sounds good. Committee members, any questions or comments for Mr. Luddle? Okay. Any other council members in chambers? Councilman Fusco?
Some of us who've been around for a spell, we recall some of the discussions that we had around contracting with regards to the Akron Waterways Renewed project, and it was a focus in terms of hiring folks from Akron, hiring minorities, and I know we've made strides in that direction. And so I appreciate all those efforts, as well as the important piece those folks sitting in the back have done for us with regards to exceeding expectations that were promulgated from the federal government on on our project, plus getting it delivered on way ahead of schedule, basically.
Yeah, way ahead.
And I know that was a lot of coordination. So
Yes.
appreciate the efforts of everyone involved, including Mr. Stevens.
Thank you. And if I could add to that, a good point, Mr. Councilman Fusco, is, you know, it was Glenn's team, because he's seen this happen in other programs, other sewer districts where prime contractors, the big ones, were hiring contractors and only buying the material through them. It's a pass-through. And he was the one that says we should not give them full credit for that, just to buy the material. They have to actually put boots on the ground and put people to work. So it was him that came to us, and this was back, I give John Moore credit, to change some of those goals to say, no, you don't get full credit if you're just buying rebar. We actually want to see the people on the jobs, not only delivering that rebar, but also installing that rebar. So that was just one example of that, so.
Right. Oh, good, thanks. Anyone else? Consent okay on this one?
Yes, sir.
All right, committee?
Motion for consent.
Second?
I have a motion and a second for consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Can you read in number 11, Sarah?
Item number 11 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, without the formality of advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts with Keep Akron Beautiful for the provision of litter control, recycling, graffiti removal, and beautification activities in the city of Akron and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Chris?
This is our annual contract with KEB, and I could go on for a long time, but Jackie's here, so I'm going to let Jackie talk about her program and answer any questions. But, you know, they've been a partner for us for years. Obviously, they're in our building over at 850 East Market, and collaboration with us, you know, we all know how important it is and the need of the litter control, the graffiti removal. But those are the things that they happen every day. But when you look at the beautification stuff they do, you know, the little corner lot with the flowers, you know, the flowers out front, the park across the street, they do a fantastic job. But I'm going to turn it over to Jackie, and she can kind of talk about the program a little bit.
Hi. Thank you all for having me here today. I'm Jackie Ricciuti. I'm the Executive Director of Keep Akron Beautiful. And just to speak a little bit of what the funding allows Keep Akron Beautiful to accomplish. So that is for picking up litter on expressways, roadsides, and city parks, running community cleanups all over the city, removing graffiti in the city of Akron within 48 hours of the complaint, administer our flowerscape program, which is our beautification program that Chris just talked about. We have 20 flower beds all across the city that we prep, plant, and maintain all season long, so all of those plants are going in right now. It allows us to administer our Adopt-A-Site program, which is in Akron's neighborhoods. We have approximately 50 groups that take care of public property with our help. We help them select the flowers that they're planting and help them with any questions that they have throughout the season. And then our Beautification Watch Awards, which are sent out to all deserving property owners, residents, and businesses in the month of September. Our volunteers canvass the entire city the month of July, so we have people go out in teams of 2 and drive down every single street and every single road in the city and write down all of the addresses that are neat, clean, and beautiful, and then everyone who is deserving, so every address that is written down receives a certificate, and people can call in and give us addresses as well. And I know many of you send us addresses of people in your wards to get these. But they receive a letter from City Council and the Mayor and Keep Akron Beautiful's Board of Directors, along with their certificate in the month of September, thanking them for taking care of their property and keeping it neat and clean. And then it also helps us to fund the salaries of our 2 litter employees that are on the streets every single day picking up litter, and 1 program person who helps us with all of our events and coordination for our litter removal efforts.
Thank you, Jackie. And I really appreciate the breakdown of the categories of the dollar amounts. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Committee members, any questions? Of course, Councilman Lombardo.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jackie, for being here today. I was trying to write as fast as I can because I know you guys do so much. And I just wanted to know, is the money requested here, is that an increase from last year, a decrease?
It is not. It is the same amount as it was last year.
Okay. And because again, I mean, I was trying to write down, you know, you only have 2 litter employees and the program director, and are these same employees the one that control the graffiti or get rid of the graffiti?
Our litter employees do all of the litter and the graffiti, yes.
And I guess.
And we work with lots of court-ordered community service workers, at which we've told you all in the past that we had a decline in that over the last few years. Over the last 3 weeks, I think I've had over 100 people. So we have lots and lots of people out with us picking up the litter. The amount of litter that we collected all of last year, we've already collected this year, and it's only May. So the work is there. There's lots to do, and there's still more, as you know.
That's right. I mean, all the council people, I'm sure if I said, here's the top 5 complaints that we get, guess where litter falls, right? So I guess, is there will you see a request in the future? Will we see a request in the future maybe for increased funding? Because it's just, I hate to say so out of hand, it's just never ending.
That would be great. Yeah, we would love an increase in the funding.
Yeah. Okay, well anyhow, thank you for what you do. We'll talk in the future about litter cleanups, and how would we request a graffiti removal? Through your office?
Yeah, you just call our office or email at keepakronbeautiful or kab@keepakronbeautiful.org, or call and leave a message for Daniel, our litter and graffiti person, and he remediates those obviously right away. Just like we do with the litter, we try to get with everything within 48 hours, but sometimes, you know, it takes us a little longer if there's lots and lots of requests all at once.
So there's a lot of businesses. It's just not a bridge. So obviously you have to go to the business, ask the business owner, would you mind us painting over that on the front of your building?
We do all the graffiti removal on public property. We can't just go remove on people's businesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's not even a
No.
thing to
No, we're not allowed to do that unless they call us and ask us to, and then we can.
All right, just on the public property.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Our parks and things.
Yes,
Okay.
we do lots at parks. We had our graffiti machine was winterized for a while, and I believe we had 48 requests at the beginning of the season that we took care of in 2 weeks, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You could always turn those into 311 too, and they'll get to them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
they'll get to us, yes.
311 goes right to them.
Yep.
Yep, okay, public property. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. I have McKittrick next, then Hardy, then DeShazer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really grateful for the ability to handle our graffiti. I know during COVID, it seemed like that became a sport for some of our youth to really get out there and put a lot of graffiti out, and it was great to have it taken care of so quickly. I hear that you had these recent requests. I'm hoping that things have maybe slowed down a little bit since COVID.
so,
And
yeah.
they have other things to occupy them, but thanks so much.
Thank you.
Councilman Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great presentation. I just want to sort of double down on Councilman Lombardo's string of questions. So just in looking back on the contracts for KAB, in the last 15 years, they've only increased about 12%. And I think we all know that the actual cost of materials, staffing, labor costs, et cetera, have all been increased a lot more than 12%. So at the same time, litter is out of control, might seem dramatic, but I think that probably my colleagues would agree with that statement. And KAB being our primary nonprofit partner on this, I guess I would ask my question a little differently and say, is 325 enough? And if not, how can we work together to get the KAB contract to a place where we're getting after the litter a little bit more effectively. Great to hear that we're getting those court-ordered workers back. That's a huge help, I know, but again, just wondering if 325 really truly is enough to get after the litter in a way that people feel a meaningful difference.
Thank you, Councilman. Did you want to answer any of that, or you're okay? I'll go on to the next councilman. Councilman.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Sam DeShazier. I want to just buttress some of the comments that Councilman Lombardo has said here in terms of, you know, the good work that you're doing in the community and the proud efforts that are made, and people are finding it out. And I think they're responding in a lot of ways. What I don't always understand, and maybe you know what's happening, the increase in the trash now, I mean, we're on, this is the 20th of May.
Yes.
And we got a whole new summer that's got to come up. I'm not exactly sure where that's coming from, and we've been talking about it amongst the service department and others throughout the last several weeks. We're just seeing a lot of that. Where are you seeing that increase in activity for people who go through in the middle of the night and throw something out? I guess that's where it's coming from, but.
Yeah, the illegal dumps have really risen over, I've been with Keep Akron Beautiful just a little over 10 years, and I've seen more now than ever. And the amount of trash at the expressway ramps, like we used to visit those every 5 days. We'd be back at the expressway ramp, and now it takes us so long to clean them. We can't get there every 5 days. It's like every 8-ish days. And when we get there, they're just full of trash again. I really think, so we're part of a national organization, Keep America Beautiful, and we're seeing this all across the nation. I mean, I'm the president of our Young Leaders Association, and I'm a part of our Big Cities Coalition, and we get together yearly and talk, and everybody's seeing this. I feel like there's a lot of lack of care of people. They just don't care about their communities. But then on the other hand, we've had more volunteers in the last 2 years than we ever have. So there are people that care too. I don't want to say everyone doesn't care, but there's a bigger lack of care now than there has been before. During COVID, we saw a lot of issues with like the to-go containers and things of that nature, the masks, the gloves being littered in places as people would take them off and just throw them on the ground. But there's lots of different things that we're finding, and as Chris knows, we've had a lot of issues with illegally dumped tires. We had a whole tire coalition that met, and we're working on things with that. It's just a huge rise. And it's really concerning to us as an organization just because, and not in our city alone, but litter and crime go hand in hand. When an area is littered, there's expected to be more crime in that area, but the opposite takes place when we remove the litter. People feel more safe and secure, and the crime rates seem to go down. And we did an overlay map with the Akron Police Department just last year with their crime maps and our litter maps and our hot spots, and the crime and the litter match up perfectly. So we need to get rid of the litter and make people feel more safe, and then in hopes that the crime rates go down too. So it makes a big difference.
Well, my last comment is that, you know, people who sit around this horseshoe are anxious to see in their particular areas that they get things going with other organizations who also would assist you. But if they want to call an opportunity for a cleanup, who do we call? We call you?
Yeah, you call us. We're happy to help do any kind of cleanup in your ward, in your area. April is typically our cleanup month, but we do cleanups all year long, many different weekends. We can bring our whole team out, set something up. Obviously, we'd rely on you to help us get to know the neighbors, but in some of our areas, Donnie's area, Phil's area, we've, you know, established that we're doing that in those areas with their help, and we have so many of their volunteers just call us directly and go out and get supplies from us and help us with litter cleanups all year long. So if you're interested, we're all ears, we're happy to help, so just give me a call and we'll set something up.
Thank you, and kudos to you.
Thank you.
Councilman Fusco and Councilwoman Woods.
Why, thank you. Yeah, as a former board member, big fan, of course, like everyone here. And I have a number of questions which perhaps would be more appropriate offline. But the one piece is the enforcement piece. And I know for a spell there many years ago, and I understand that priorities have shifted and changed. However, though, I think it's interesting as you speak about, the heat map that you reviewed with APD, in that, I know those dumps, there was a time whenever we dedicated funds, and perhaps we'll ask it another time, but, when we had a team from APD going out enforcing those and spending the time. I don't know if that's currently done or not, or if you know if that's done or not.
No, it was partial funding from the EPA that's no longer, and then partial city funding. You're speaking of our litter law enforcement officer. Yes. So the community engagement team for APD works alongside us to do some of that stuff now, but as you can imagine, they're overwhelmed with lots of different things. So if we even had someone for a couple of hours a week, that could potentially make a huge difference. But it hasn't been something that's been around for, oh my gosh, at least all the time that I've been at KAB.
It's been a while, I know.
It was a grant.
I wanted to double check. And quick question, like I said, we'll talk offline, but the equipment for the graffiti removal, how old is it? Is it okay? Has it been?
No, it's good. It's great.
Is it okay?
Actually, James, when he was working as a city employee, helped us get some new equipment.
Good.
So it's in great shape, great condition. We use a lot of solvents and wipes and that kind of stuff too, as well as our blasting equipment, which is for special locations. So.
Well, thank you and your team for all you all do, and I think you have some advocates here.
Thank
and
you.
we can begin talking more. Good to hear that the courts have are helping us assisting now. That's great news, and so I'll give you a call soon. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Just a quick question. A couple things you mentioned piqued my interest. So it's great to hear we have some help around the exits. What I have noticed is that oftentimes those who maintain the exits run over the trash before you ever get to them. So is there a schedule? I mean, do you have scheduling? Do you know when the highways are coming out to mow those areas?
No, we don't.
Is there a way to get that information?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Well, some of those we mow, but a lot of them are mowed by ODOT.
Yeah.
So we'd have to collaborate with ODOT on those is when they're going to mow.
I can
Okay.
find out.
Yeah, and ODOT is specifically what I'm interested in because that's
Okay.
where I'm seeing the problem.
One of their vice presidents at ODOT's on the Keep Ohio Beautiful Board of Directors, so I can call him directly and ask him about it. Yeah.
Great, thanks. My other question was, oh my gosh, I've completely forgotten it. Oh, with regard to graffiti removal, does that include state routes and bridges, or is it just city-owned property?
We do a lot on bridges.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it just depending, as long as we can get to it safely.
Gotcha.
A couple of things we've had to enlist other help just because there was no way our employees could get to it, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to go back to the budget. Councilman Hardy posed the question, $325,000, is that enough? I mean, we're already kind of hearing that we're seeing more trash. I think this is going to probably be our new reality. I was waiting on you to answer. And this is only going to help us to be able to support you and the great work that you're doing.
We've asked for increase in the past, and I just didn't think it was in the budget. So, I mean, we could go back and have more conversations about that. I can defer to Chris too,
Yes.
so.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, Councilwoman Somerville, we have worked with her on the budget, and they have requested extra funding. Recently, we have offered some other services, like when we buy chemicals, could we leverage some of our buying power to give them the chemical that they don't have to buy? So we have done a little bit of that, but we can look at it.
Yeah, if we can.
We can
And
look
just-
at that in the future.
Wonderful. What was the ask?
325 here.
This year, it was 325.
No, the
No,
increase.
she just asked, could it be increased?
And could it be
There-
increased?
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I just want to,
There
put that
wasn't a
out there.
specific number.
Let's please sit down, have some conversations, see how we can get them an increase.
Sure.
Thank you.
I mean, one thing I want to add about the community service workers, that probably came out of, you all remembers when we went through budget hearings, and they were asking for other things, and that was one of the things that brought up since COVID, we weren't getting them. Whether it's our employees taking them out to do, you know, we were using them to clean sewer inlets, we were using to do big cleanups, we were using, so it's been great that she's been able to get some this year, and it's just a stepping stone. Perception always isn't a reality. People think if you don't pick up the trash, no one cares, so we'll just throw more down. Well, they do a heck of a job cleaning it up, so somehow we got to get the message out. It is not okay to open your window and throw your fast food wrapper out of the window. You know, it's ridiculous. So, I don't know what the answer is, but as long as we keep vigilant out and get it picked up. The tires, we did work with APD when we had that problem last year, and they did detain somebody. And I don't know if they were going to the used tire store and say, I'll get rid of these for you. But we had 800 in one spot, and that's kind of really calmed down. So that really has calmed down, and APD did help. So kudos to them for helping us last year. But that was one isolated major problem.
Thank you. Councilman Lombardo?
Right, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Lello, you hit the nail on the head. What I was going to say is that, you know, well, I have a couple things to say, but first one is, like, how much money goes into some type of education? Maybe I missed it, you know, like whether it's a insert in the water bill or in the paper, because, you know, the storm sewers are not the basket, and your trash is not a ball. And we're not, the goal isn't to throw it in the basket, right? So how do we get the word out, whether it's starting in our public schools, that it's not okay to litter based on all the facts that you just said about crime? So I guess first thing, how much do you put into education or advertising, if you will? And then the other thing, after you answer that, I would hope sometime, whether it's this year or next year, that the city could find a way to increase the ask here, because you're doing a heck of a lot with little people, you know.
Yeah.
And so.
Small team.
Small team. So.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
So about 20 to 25,000 in education and advertising. One of my employees, Emma Segedy, and I spend lots and lots of time during the month of April visiting different classrooms and talking about litter. But it's just added to what we do. So we would love to eventually have a person that could go into the schools. That was something that we used to do, a lot of education around trees and Arbor Day and litter removal, and it just kind of stopped with COVID. That was a partnership that we had with Akron Public Schools, but the person that was doing it did retire, and she was actually employed through APS, and Keep Akron Beautiful paid her salary, and they were no longer wanting to do the partnership that way. But love it. We'd love to do it. We just need more money to be able to do it. So I think it's very important. I think we're doing as much as we can, but we're offering it to people who want us to come in. So, and we can only be stretched so thin. There's only two of us who are also then running all of the community cleanups and all of the other events that we're doing. I actually come to you today from, I kicked off our group at the Country Club of Hudson. We had our charity golf outing is going on right now, so that's why I'm dressed like this. But so that is one of our major fundraisers, and we have another major fundraiser as well that brings in approximately $50,000 every year. The golf outing brings in about $25,000, which helps with all of this as well. So we're doing our own fundraising on our own too. It's not just the city contract that pays for the work that we do.
I mean, I could add just one quick story. Last April, one of our neighbors, her granddaughter goes to I Promise. And she brought her up to the house and she says, tell Mr. Luttle what you learned at school today. Miss Jackie came to our school and said it's bad. I got to go pick up litter. So this is the third grader from I Promise that Jackie made an impression on her that we need to go out and pick up litter, and it's bad to do littering. So. Yeah, I mean, that really hit home that, you know, getting to these kids at that age is very important.
And I think the kids really help the parents too.
Yes.
Like My daughter's in kindergarten, and it's huge for her to come out to the community cleanups, and her class participates in them. Phil met her at one of our cleanups, but it's really, really important to her. So getting to them at a young age, if we had that opportunity, I think it would help with our litter problem, because their parents are the ones that are doing the littering. So, and they would ask them to stop, or why are you doing that?
Good. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Hannah, did you have something too? You sure? All right. All right, well, before we, what's your pleasure on this, Chris? Consent?
Since there's a holiday, let's suspend the rules so we can get this contract going.
Before I ask for a vote, I would like to echo what some of my colleagues said. Jackie, every time you come down here, I always say what a great relationship we have. You do a fantastic job. I think the relationship that we have in Ward 7 and you is great. So thank you for all what you do. I'm really appreciative that we have some of these community workers, folks that are back, because I know a couple years during COVID was tough.
It's bad, yeah.
I'll never forget being on vacation. I called you 3 times in 1 week because of trash. And I was like, what is going on? It was like normally just a couple calls a month. But I think you heard from a lot of my colleagues. I think next year I would encourage the administration, including the finance director, to come here with a higher dollar amount so we can help tackle the trash. I think you have support here. So hopefully next year we'll see a higher dollar amount, and we'll be able to get more things for Keep Akron Beautiful to make our city look even better. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So with that, Chris did ask for suspension of the rules.
So move.
Second.
All in favor? I got a motion and a second for suspension of the rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you, Jackie, I appreciate that. All right, our final piece, ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Spray Point services for the customer information system, other known as CIS, to be integrated with the new metering system and declare an emergency. Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. This piece also is tied to our AMI project. This is the customer informational system. UMS, our contractors installing the meter, has worked with them to develop a new program. Well, it's time for us to engage with them. There's certain license agreements that we have to purchase or purchase through them for the software, upgrades that will be needed or to be implemented. This all goes to the new meters and how our residents will interact with, they can look at their usage, this is the very important part of this whole program, especially when it comes to leak detection. And, we read the meter once a month currently with a drive-by system. Your new meter will be read multiple times a day. If you have usage, this will help you get an alert, whether it's a text or an email or a phone call, that Mr. So-and-so, you've had 24-hour usage, you must have a toilet leaking, you could have an outside spigot dripping, you have something running. So it goes down to the gallons, where we were billing before in HCF, which is 748 gallons. So this is we're very comfortable with this company. I have Darren here if you have any specific questions on the Spry Point, but this is ready us to kick off the new program and enter an agreement with them. So, right. And consent is fine.
All right, thank you, Chris. Committee members, any questions for Chris? Comments? Any other council members? I do have a question. I've known about this for a little while, but when does that new service start with the text messaging?
Well, we are trying to get all the meters in first until we really make it go live. It's probably still almost 8 or 10, 12 months away.
Okay. I see he's standing up.
We get alerts. We do get alerts now. So if we do something, we call the number when you registered your meter. So when you get a new meter, we're not at the point where you're going to get a text. But if you have continuous usage, you will get a phone call from us to check something. And if you can't find anything, we will send a representative out to help you. But that being able to go in and look at your usage, we're not quite there yet.
So let me ask you, so in Ward 7, I know all those meters basically been replaced. So is there like a phone number that the city has?
You just call the water bureau, but they'll call you if, so when you got your new meter, you probably upgraded your new phone number.
Okay.
You had an existing account, it could have been a landline from, 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So you've gave a new phone number, whether it's a new landline or, so we're gonna use that new contact information to get a hold of you.
So from the new meters being installed, somehow there's been updated.
Updated information,
Okay,
correct.
cool.
Yes.
Cool. Do you want to add anything? No? Good? All right, no, it sounds impressive. I appreciate it. All right, I'll ask again, any committee members or council members? Okay, and you said consent's okay? All right, committee.
Motion for consent.
Second?
I have a motion and a second for consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Before we adjourn, I do have a question. Sidewalk program, we moving forward with the citywide sidewalk program?
Yes, sir.
Everything's going
Yeah, I
good?
did check today, and we're moving forward. So
Okay.
the contractor is Supreme, and I believe they've given the notice to proceed. So I think we've started just tree removal so far. They haven't really excavated at all, but yeah, we're moving forward.
All right, cool, thanks. And speed humps, I'm sure we're all getting excited, so thank you.
Yeah, I think we're
Appreciate it.
probably 80% of those installed, and we're putting signs up this week on Maple. We're going to pilot a permanent one right by the fire station. Unfortunately, last month we had a car, and I don't know if a speed table or hump would have changed it, but it drove at a high rate of speed in the middle of the night, went through that curve, went through the front garage door, and damaged one of our EMS units. So, but that was definitely driver error, and but we are going to pilot one there, and it's going to be going in real soon. So I think the signs are going up this week, striping next week, and the asphalt will be going down probably the week of, I think, the 10th of June, I believe, or
thank
sooner,
you.
weather dependent.
I appreciate it. I'm always on board for a pilot asphalt one too. Thanks. With that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Our next committee of the day is the Public Safety Committee. Those committee members are McKittrick, Kamer, Lombardo, Hannah, and Davis. We do have all committee members present except for Councilwoman Davis. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Sarah. I'd like to call public safety to order, and if I could get a motion to approve our previous minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Any opposed? All right. We have two pieces that come before us today. The first is an ordinance authorizing the mayor as a designee to enter into a contract with Oriana House Incorporated for confinement, rehabilitation services, and alternative sentencing options for certain offenders convicted of violations of the Akron Municipal Code of Ordinances and declaring an emergency. Captain McCosey.
All right, on the, I do not have the information on the ordinance for Oriana House.
Is there anybody else from the administration and would like to speak in reference to this?
Yes, indeed. All right. So this is our annual contract with Oriana House for community corrections services. The amount is the same as it has been for, I want to say, at least the past 3 years, $2.7 million. Services are essentially the same. And you're talking about things like house arrest, community alternative sentencing center services. A lot of our folks go into the cask. All of the different kinds of monitoring that gets done, both pre and post trial. Those are the services that Oriana House provides. They're also fairly actively involved with the different specialty courts, drug court, the human trafficking court, and so and they will continue to provide the services that they've provided in the past at that same level. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much for that information. Do we have any questions by any committee members? Councilman Kamer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your explanation. Usually, it would be nice if maybe next year if we can have a representative come down and speak to us from Oriana House. I'd appreciate that. I know we used to always have a representative come and just speak to us and maybe answer any questions. So it'd be nice if we could try to get back to that next year. I don't even know who the new executive is or whatever the title is appropriate for them over there, but
they've had a little change in
Yeah,
management, so we'll have to figure out exactly who that
we
person
still got a
will
whole
be.
year, so I appreciate that.
Yeah,
So
no
thanks.
problem.
Thanks, Councilman. Any other questions from any committee or other council members?
Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
Mr. Garrett.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you, Chair. My question is for the Oriental House. In terms of complaints, what are we looking at in terms of complaints and possible lawsuits? Have we had anything of that nature, and are we able to get information to that effect?
I have not been made aware of any, and I would think that I would be if that had been happening. So I am inclined to say, I know we haven't been sued on anything recently that had anything to do with a client at Oriana House.
Thank you. In terms of, if you could check into that, that would be great. A few of my constituents had concerns. And then also about like discipline or abuse issues. Have you had any, I know he mentioned normally we would have a representative here, but someone to speak to some of the concerns that some of the constituents are sharing that have trouble during that time at Oriana House?
Again, I haven't been made aware of any. And actually, if you would like, I mean, if you would like to have somebody from Oriana House come this year at some point and address some of these concerns and the contract and the services, I'm entirely certain we can figure out who the appropriate person for that purpose is and have them come on in. If you just tell me when you'd like them to be here.
Any other questions, Mr. Garrett?
Thank you, Chair. Now, I've heard of some good experiences with the organization, but like I said, there were some issues that have been brought to my attention, and we could actually look into that. That would really be helpful. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Council.
If you could let me know who some of those folks are, I'd be happy to even get a targeted response.
Thanks for that answer and for your question. Are there any other questions in regard to this contract? What's our pleasure? Is there consent agenda, or is there a pressing need to pass this, or?
I think there's probably a pressing need to pass this.
Okay. Can I get a motion for suspension of the rules?
I'll make that motion to suspend the rules.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you.
We'll get that out tonight. Okay, we have another piece coming in, an ordinance authorizing the mayor as designee to apply for and, if awarded, accept and expend grant funding for the FY 2024 Connect and Protect Law Enforcement Behavioral Health Response Grant program administered by the U.S. Department of Justice, authorizing the mayor, his designee, to enter into a contract or contracts with the ADM board and facilitate grant activities and declaring an emergency. Captain McCosey.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Yes, we are asking for your authority to make our application for this grant program and to enter into the contracts that will be necessary as a part of that. This grant application, what we would like to do here is acquire some software packages that will allow us to gather better information on the behavioral response calls that we have. This is particular to the Scout team. I know that you're all aware of the Scout team and the great work they're doing already, It is still a pilot, so we're still working our way through understanding how all that works. That is that collaboration with the police department, fire department, and ADM. This grant will allow us to purchase this software package and get that up and running. It will allow us to pay for a little bit of training for the team leaders, and then it will allow quite a bit of funding for additional time for the officers, as well as funding for AFD and ADM, so that we can offer more time and more hours of the scout team being available out in the community. So we've already seen a return on this, and some of the most of that is anecdotal at this point. We hope to have some better numbers for you very soon to talk about the pilot that they're doing out there, but they're doing great work, and this grant will help us do even more.
Thanks for that information. Seeing that our scout team's relatively new, is this a grant that's fairly new, or has this grant been around for other
This is a
communities?
new grant program. It's called Connect and Protect. As the legislation states, we have not applied for this in the past. It is competitive, so we are in the pool with other applications out there looking to do similar things. And there is a match, a stratified match to this program. So we will have to match some of the funding for some of the officers' payroll expenses there as we expend it.
Okay, thanks for that information. Are there any questions from any committee members and any council members? I see Councilwoman Amobian.
Thank you, Mr. McKittrick. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Captain Cozy, didn't you come in recently with a similar grant request to apply?
I
It
believe
seems
you
to
were referencing maybe the law enforcement behavioral mental health and wellness grant that we did a couple of weeks ago, I believe it was.
Yes.
The previous grant was for our police officers and our police employees, and that mental health program. This one is just for the scout team and the outreach to the community here.
That was very similar, but no, I appreciate you going after any dollars to help the mental health of our staff. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Councilwoman. Are there any other questions from any committee or council members? Okay, seeing none. Is there a time constraint on this?
No, sir, we're okay with consent on this one.
Could I get a motion for consent, please?
Motion for consent.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll get that out tonight. I don't think we have anything else to come before us. Public safety will be adjourned. Thank you.
Our next committee was the Budget and Finance Committee. Those committee members are Lombardo, Amobian, Fusco, Boyes, and Hardy. We do have all committee members present whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to call the Budget and Finance Committee meeting to order this afternoon. With that, all committee members are here, present, and I'd like to get a motion to approve the last meeting's minutes.
So move.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Very good. Minutes passed. This afternoon, we have one piece of legislation coming before us, and that is an ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a contract offering voluntary separation payments to deputy chiefs within the Akron Police Department in order to provide an immediate means for effectuating change and providing an opportunity for promotion within the Akron Police Department, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency. Okay, so Mayor Malik is here to present.
Sure.
Along with our, I see.
Thank you, Mr.
Harding.
Chair.
Thank you.
Madam President, Committee and Council. Today, we're here to share some details about a proposal for voluntary separations, which is sometimes referred to as buyouts within the Akron Police Department. Before we start, I do want to acknowledge Chief Harding is here for the first time in his permanent capacity. He has obviously been here in the acting capacity, but we're happy to have him here in the permanent role. So voluntary separation packages, again, sometimes referred to as buyouts, exist to create openings for officers at lower ranks to move up to advance to higher ranks within a department. Allowing for movement in the ranks, especially as the higher you go, there are fewer roles. It assists with changing culture, and it allows for new ideas and new perspectives, and ultimately new leaders to enter into leadership. The legislation being introduced here today would allow for us to enter into a voluntary separation agreement at the deputy chief level. This is the first step in a two-step process that we'd like to undertake. The second step would be also opening up the possibility of voluntary separations at the captain and lieutenant level. That requires negotiation and discussion with the union as well as council approval. At the deputy chief level, it only requires council approval. So we're here taking the first step here with you today. That second step, we imagine, would take place within the next few months and would obviously involve more discussion. I want to underscore that these voluntary separation packages will allow our new chief to establish the team that can allow him to move forward with new management structure and change within the department, focusing on community policing, focused on strengthening relationships with our residents, and focused on improving and strengthening ultimately our department. It's important that a new leader has that ability to establish the team around them. And so this is an important step that we're hoping to take. And I'll turn it over at this point to Chief Harding.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilman Lombardo, President Somerville, and Council in general. As the Mayor mentioned, as you rise up through the ranks, it can take longer. They're smaller. It's like a pyramid structure. At the top, we currently have a budget for 4 deputy chiefs. We have 11 captains, 20 lieutenants, and 387 funded officers between officer and detective. Naturally, this process can be time-consuming and take a while to occur. And limit those opportunities as people move up. I want to make it's important note to realize this is a voluntary separation. This is not, it's up to each person if they decide to choose to be part of this. I also want to kind of mention specifically around the fact that our officers really work hard and are dedicated to community every day. Our vision, my vision specifically, I'm sure you've heard me talk about it several times, is community engagement and relationship building is by far our number one priority. I think it's important, as the Mayor mentioned, to have a team dedicated to that. I think this is a step in that direction. Our officers do work hard every day for public safety and for the community. And I think it's important that we show the respect to them and the safety force that we always do. And I want to tell you again, we're always very appreciative and thankful for your continued support. So thank you.
So thank you, Mayor Malik. Thank you, Chief. The package being presented to council today would allow for a payment of up to $400,000 to one current deputy chief. While $400,000 is a significant amount, I want to explain how that amount was derived. The city recognizes that some public safety employees participate in the Ohio Police and Fire's Deferred Retirement Option Plan. We refer to
Mike, can you speak a little bit?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you need to be close. Or speak louder, one of the two. Thank you.
Is that better?
Yep. Might want to backtrack a few sentences.
That's fine.
Thank you.
The package being presented to council today would allow for a payment of up to $400,000 to one current deputy chief. While $400,000 is a significant amount, I want to explain how that amount was derived. The city recognizes that some public safety employees participate in Ohio Police and Fire's Deferred Retirement Option Plan, commonly referred to as DROP. This means they have elected to have an additional benefit that accumulates to a lump sum of payout at retirement. This takes the form of an interest-bearing account that vests over a 5-year period. However, if an employee retires before the minimum vesting period of 5 years, they lose the interest-bearing portion of the account. This amount being offered recognizes both the loss and benefit and an amount that reflects the gratitude of the city for that officer's service. Because of the police and fire pension plan does not permit the administration to know what is in an officer's drop account, this is an estimate based on his highest 3 years of salary and utilizing the OPNF drop pension estimator. The result is that the interest-bearing portion of the account could somewhere be somewhere between $150,000 to $200,000. That is the base amount that could be lost. The amount being offered compensates for what the officer could be losing and also recognizes the length of service. Thank you.
So, as Mr. Wheeler said, it's intended to compensate the officer for an amount that would be lost through the pension plan, but it's also an investment in creating the strongest possible team that we can have moving forward with this new leader and the new structure within the department, and also bringing in new perspectives and giving people an opportunity to advance. So we look forward to dialogue around this and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mike. I just wanted to first start off by saying I know this email legislation came to me at least at 11:28 this morning. So as I started my council work, it was a lot to digest, and I'm not sure that all the committee, I didn't have time to get with them. I'm sure they saw it, but I'm not totally sure. So I'll just say that. So again, a lot to digest. I just wanted to start off with a few questions that, one was answered. Will there be in the future 4 deputy chiefs still?
Yeah. So right now, currently, there's one deputy chief, given that he has been promoted.
Yep.
In the coming weeks, there will be a permanent promotion made to deputy chief that was already in the pipeline over the last few months. There were interviews and a process. And so then at that point, there will be 2. And then at that point, we would make a promotion. If there would be a separation under this, then we would fill that role and 2 other roles. So we would appoint 3, either 2 or 3. So we would have a total of 4. And that would be on an acting basis, those additional, either 2 or 3, through the end of the year. I've committed through the police chief search process to bringing forward a charter amendment proposal that would allow for a broader consideration of internal and external candidates for the deputy chief role and chief role in police and fire. And so the goal would be to have those 2 roles or 3 roles filled on an acting basis through the end of the year, and then allow for a broader process going forward to fill those roles permanently in the new year. Okay. And so yes, there's 4 roles that are budgeted, and that would also be part of, right now, we have 3 deputy chief roles. We want to look at how you reorganize that structure to allow for 4 roles. That's something that Chief Harding is looking into. You want to add anything to that?
Yeah, currently our investigative subdivision has the vast majority of the officers. We're looking at splitting out part of that and possibly reorganizing with a greater emphasis around community engagement.
Okay. So I guess educate me as you rise through the ranks of a police officer into a sergeant and lieutenant, captain, right? In order to be promoted, you need to maybe have some years of experience, let alone take a test. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And we've stated, for the record that, we do have a lot of hardworking police officers, and hardworking because of a lot of pride in the city, a lot of pride in their job. They've made it to this level, hopefully to be the level, and yet here comes the, voluntary separation agreement. So I'm just going to leave it at that comment right now, and then open up the floor to other committee members.
Can I add one thing, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
Just to your first point, I wanted to clarify, we're not asking for passage today, so we understand that this is a significant thing, and so I'm not asking for passage today.
Thank you for clarifying that. Other budget and finance members? Okay, we'll start off with Councilwoman Linda Amobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
I guess my first question is, I don't fully understand why we're doing this, because it appears to me, based on what I understand, unless my understanding is incorrect, that you have the authority now to move people up as acting deputy chiefs? Now, because you have 2 vacancies. That's one question. The second question is, when someone fully finishes the drop program, isn't there, I mean, we only pay a portion of that. We're not required to pay the whole thing. I think other part comes from the state. That's my second question. And my third question is, why would we want to do something like this? That's simple for me because it really creates a precedence that I get real concerned about. You know, it may not impact anybody else while I'm on council, but it sets a precedence for whomever serves after me. And if someone doesn't like whatever his or her job is, they have the option of leaving. And I realize people don't want to leave early and leave money on the table. But the other part is the chief has the authority now that he has the job to reassign people that may not agree with the direction he's going or may not agree with philosophy of the organization now that we're trying to promote a different kind of environment.
Mobian,
I don't know what the reasons.
You freeze up now and then. If you heard me, you freeze up now and then. So I don't know if you want to rephrase the last sentence.
Yeah, the essence of my last question is, what is the reason for wanting to do this? It sets a precedent that I think is dangerous, as well as if someone is not in agreement with the direction or the cultural changes that the chief wants to implement, they can be reassigned, they can leave. There are so many options they have. And I know most people don't want to leave money on the table. I am not stupid. However, it's a choice that they make. If they choose to stay, especially if they're in that level of leadership, they must be willing to go along with the environment that we're trying to create. So I hope you got my question and hope you heard me clearly. If not, I can go on the floor tonight to talk about it or next week or whenever we are back in session. But I'm troubled by this request. Did you hear that?
Absolutely, Councilwoman, and I appreciate the comments. I'll try to address it. I think the first point is, again, that this is voluntary, right? So this doesn't have to be agreed to, and it is entirely up to anyone who is offered this to not do so. I think it's really important, as we talk about, we're not trying to make any decisions for any individuals as part of any of this. The goal here really is to make sure that as we start off on a new moment with a new chief, that person has the opportunity to build a team around them that they decide upon and that they believe will best help them advance their mission in strengthening this department and strengthening public safety in this city. We've made public safety a huge priority, and so we are willing to make an investment. This is modeled also after other communities, including Columbus, which successfully did this. And so again, it's voluntary. In terms of a precedential value, I definitely understand that. What I would say is that, that's why council, has approval authority here, right? And council can choose to approve this or not. If we, in the future, which we intend to bring similar legislation around lieutenant and captain roles, that would also be for discussion with council, and council can approve that or not. And then if in any future point this idea was brought up, that would again be subject to the officials at that time bringing that forward. So to the extent that it creates a precedent, the council and the administration always retain the ability to move forward with something like this or not. We believe that this is in the best interest of the city, and that's why we're putting it forward now.
Don't forget to answer the part about the acting deputy chief. You do have the authority to do that now, don't you?
Absolutely. This is, and I said that we intend to make 2 of those appointments. If this were to go through, we would make 3 of those appointments. I think there was also a piece about the compensation that I think would be better answered by Mr. Wheeler than myself.
Yeah, I was going to circle back on that. In terms of our requirements for Ohio Police and Fire, OPNF, we are just required to pay the city's share of the pension obligation. So there's no additional money that would be needed for that. It's just day-to-day business.
Thank you. Councilman Fusco.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for bringing this in. Appreciate it, and I appreciate, seizing the moment with new leadership, doing all we can to move forward, and ensuring or working to ensure that everyone is going to be rowing in the same direction. However, though, being one who's served in the public and the private communities as a manager, I do understand also that sometimes it's, we don't always have everyone who checks off with the boss, who may not agree 100% with the direction. I'm guessing that's why this is moving forward, and that's what I'm somewhat hearing here. And I do know that the individual we're talking about has the respect of the department. And after talking to several people, just the respect of a lot of people around this horseshoe, as a matter of fact, as well as the department. And I'm a couple quick questions, though, and I, not knowing that we're going to be taking time, I would like to request that we see the exact calculations on this, and everything that was you kind of answered, like this is this and this is that. But I believe that, if we're going to be looking at this possibly in the future as well, we should be able to see that, and that should be, something that we could look at and digest the actual dollar amounts as well. The last time we did this was on the heels of the recession, and that was back in 10, 11, something like that, I believe. We had a major buyout within the city overall, and that's what that was about. And that's why I like to see the calculations. I also like to see the calculations because there's, I think, concern surrounding, it's an investment in our employees. Not only is this like in the police side, but also fire, also other employees throughout the city. We support them, and we give them training, equipment, all that. And I'd like to see those numbers so we can calculate an ROI on this. It's going to be very difficult whenever you have someone with that kind of institutional knowledge. I know that can't be calculated. I get that piece of it, but the other pieces can be, and I think it would educate us in terms of moving forward what this is going to look like, possibly. But I'm concerned about, I don't know how many years. 29 years of Akron. We talk about doing things the Akron way, and this person has done this the Akron way for 29 years, and I think there's a lot of value in that, a whole lot of value. Our city is somewhat unique. I would be interested also to find out the other cities that have been going through this and learn from that. I understand that Columbus has been at this for about 18 months or so. And so I don't know if that's enough time for us to kind of measure that and say, okay, well, this kind of method of managing police departments is successful or not. You know what I'm saying? I'd like to see more time. Maybe there's other cities out there that has that as well. And plus, given the fact that we do have 3 other spots, and I appreciate how difficult it is to manage people all together overall. But I believe that there's ways that we can do that and still accomplish the goals. But I'm willing to learn, willing to listen, and do some more digging and find out more information. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Fusco. I just had a brief comment. I agree that it would be helpful to provide some financial information, so I think we can look at doing that. I think that, when we look at the Akron way, and it's very important that our officers know that they have the ability to advance within a department, right? And we have someone who's advanced from cadet to chief in this department. That's very important. We've heard that during the search process. And, I just want to highlight again, there are 387 officers and detectives, 67 sergeants, 20 lieutenants, 10 captains, and 4 deputy chief spots. There will never be enough spots for everyone who would like to move into a supervisory role. But here we have the opportunity to potentially allow someone to do that. the other point I just want to make very clear, and sometimes this is difficult in some of these conversations, but really the conversations in my mind are not really about specific individuals. I have the highest respect for the service of every single person in the Akron Police Department, the Akron Fire Department, and the entire city as a whole. This is an opportunity to offer it to deputy chiefs and then to go to captains and lieutenants. In some of the conversations, it's been talked about whether there may be room for this within the fire department, whether there are room for this in the other departments. I think that's worth studying. Obviously, that would require a larger number, a larger funding source, and so we would want to obviously take a very, very close look at this. But I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, thank you. And with respect, Mayor, like I said, we have 29 years of experience here, and then whenever you go down further, there's a similar, buyout situation, whatever you want to call it, that's experience that we, the citizens of Akron, have paid for, and that's what, and that's, I believe, is important. But I also agree and I understand, the difficulties in terms of managing folks, and that's always a challenge, be it public or private side. I get all that, but so thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Tina Boyce.
Thank you, appreciate it. My question alludes a little bit to what Councilman Fusco asked. I would love to see, and I know Columbus isn't the only city doing this, perhaps there are cities that have a little more experience in this. I would love to see some of the short and long-term impacts on things like, and this might be more of a public safety thing, but recruiting, staffing levels, spending, that sort of thing. Because I'm trying to get my head around, it's a lot of money, but does it have a back-end payoff that is, innumerable in some way? So I would be curious about that. The other question I had was a more kind of current question. So we only have one deputy chief currently. If this were to pass, when would it go into effect? Would it go into effect before we've had the chance to appoint other deputy chiefs?
I don't believe so. So there will be one promotion. I believe that will be next week. And then from there, we would move forward.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Garrett.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. Chair, $400,000 is a lot of money. I just sit back and think about how many shower buses we could have. I sit back and think about how many homeless people we could help. There's a couple questions that really concern me. One is the mayor was able to rattle off the number of employees. My concern is the diversity. What's the diversity in those numbers? That's concerning when you're getting ready to spend $400,000. What direction did the police officer disagree with or was concerned with? If they didn't like the direction things are going, and we talk about manager, owner of a business, with employees, sometimes they just need to be managed, redirected, just to give them a buyout. I just think of our budget. Got Mr. Fricker here, Mr. Wheeler here. They know our budget. To give $400,000, a lot of constituents will have a problem with that. One of the things that concerned me as well is the chief mentioned team. The mayor mentioned the chief's team. Team in my mind stands for together everyone achieves more. The lack of diversity means that there's going to be folks that's going to be left out. And I'd really like for us to consider that as we move forward with spending this type of money. What is that diversity going to look like when it's time to appoint someone to a deputy chief? If there's no one of color in that position, ready to even aspire, what's taking place to push those applicants out? I mean, these are serious things, and I think my fellow colleague, Councilman Hardy, mentioned that we need to have real dialogue as it relates to this, but I'm just concerned more so about the $400,000 and the drop program. In terms of the drop program, how many, as back to finance, How many years does the gentleman have in the drop program? Does it make sense if perhaps maybe he's due to retire next year? Why are we paying him this? How many years are in that? You know, so those are just some of my concerns. $400,000 chair is a lot of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. I didn't know if, Mr. Wheeler, you have your mic on to respond to that?
Unfortunately, the city does not have access to know who or who it may not be in drop.
I'm sorry. The city doesn't have access who or who is not in the drop program?
Right. Employees do not have to tell us, and we do not have a right to ask OPNF.
Yes. I'm sorry. Our council president, Margot Somerville.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Just a question. Had we thought of other alternatives besides the voluntary separation? I mean, I know we're talking about one specific individual who has mentioned some concerns. Had we thought about reassigning that individual to somewhere else within the department? I don't know if it's possible to assign him to the administrative side. Have we looked at those as options as well?
Yeah, what I would say is that, and this I think also kind of goes to Councilman Fusco's point, this is less about any one specific person than it is about giving opportunity for new ideas and new perspectives and new leaders to rise up through the department, right? So when we look at that, you know, we have a lot of talented captains, we have a lot of talented lieutenants, we have talented sergeants and officers, all of whom have varying levels of experience and time in the program. I mean, you have officers at the very first level who have just as much time in as people at the deputy chief and chief level, right? I think the other piece of it, though, is that this is just one piece in a broader puzzle, right? So we move forward with the chief. As I said, we're moving forward with this charter amendment proposal, which is an acknowledgement to Councilman Garrett's point that right now the promotional process, especially at the deputy chief and chief level, doesn't necessarily allow for a very broad candidate pool. And so the idea is going forward that it will. We're talking about, as I mentioned, appointing people on an acting basis, again, regardless of whether this passes or not, for 2 of these roles. And there are other things that we're talking about. For the first time ever now, we have a lateral hiring program. So officers who are in other departments who are gaining valuable experience can come and go to the city of Akron and work in our police department, and they don't have to go through the entire academy. They can go through a short academy. And I think right now we have, how many people do we have on the list? I apologize.
I think currently we have about 42 right now, so that we're off to a great success so far on the lateral program.
Yeah, and so again, I guess what I want to just be clear about is this is one option that we want to put forward. It is, again, voluntary. And so, you know, if there's management issues, that's dealt with through management, right? This is more allowing, from a policy matter, opportunity for more people to rise up through the ranks of leadership.
Thank you. Councilman Kamer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. And thank you, Mayor, for coming down to present this, and congratulations, Chief. I got a few questions, but it all depends on this first question I'm about to ask. This piece of legislation that's in front of us today, if it is passed by City Council, it does become an ordinance where you don't have to come to council anymore for any other buyouts within the deputy chief position, or each.
It has a not to exceed amount, and the not to exceed amount is $400,000. And so that's only intended to be one agreement. And so there would be no intention, there'd be no ability to do anything beyond that.
So any other deputy chiefs that would get promoted in the next few years, they wouldn't be able to have a buyout without?
Not without coming to council.
Okay, gotcha. So moving forward, I see some of my colleagues made some comments that I kind of agree with. The $400,000 amount is pretty steep to go back to the constituents. And with obviously being a council person, you know the concerns that we all get on a daily basis. So that's a big concern for me. And I know there was mention about relocating or reassigning an individual, and I would support that. So this is one that Mayor, I think you're doing a really good job, and I told you before, I'm gonna walk with you as much as I can and support you, and I really appreciate what you're doing. You're 5 months into the job, but this is one that I probably can't support moving forward. But we're taking time, so I have a few weeks to think about it, but just letting you know that this is a tough one to come to city council, to potentially have a deputy chief with an agreement to voluntarily just, separate the position and move on. And I have one thing for you, Chief. Like, if you had to look back and you were a lieutenant, would you support this?
If I was a lieutenant?
Yeah, if you're a lieutenant and you're moving through the ranks and...
I guess I would appreciate I guess at each rank, people appreciate the opportunity to continue to advance. I guess I'd be a hard one to go back and look at. Everyone would look at them individually, but opportunity is important. I think it's important to give people opportunities to promote and to move forward. So I think that's always a good way to do that. I do think we do need to continue to look at reorganizing, and we're working on that as well right now. I think we've had a similar model for way too long, and it's time to sort of look at way we can do business a little bit differently. So I think that part's important.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chief. With my final comment, thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to speak. And I would just say I would encourage you to promote or assign some new deputy chiefs. I look forward to hearing those promotions. But yeah, this is one I can't do it. So as of right now, so I appreciate it, and I appreciate we taking time. So thanks.
Yeah, and I'm here because I recognize the gravity of it, and I want to share that directly with all of you. I'm not pretending it's simple, and I respect you just like I respect every member of this body. I ran talking about public safety and trying to create the best public safety we can in our community and strengthen the police department, create the best police department we can. So I recognize the cost, but that's part of why we're bringing this here. We're bringing some new ideas. New ideas like this, right? And so this is something that, I believe would allow us to advance, but everyone has their perspective. I respect that.
Thank you. Councilman McKittrick has a comment, and then we'll go to Councilwoman Sharon Connor.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions. So we're going to have a permanent promotion next week, and then there'll be 3 other that potentially would be temporary. And you mentioned the aspect of the charter change. Whether that charter change comes to fruition or does not come to fruition, is that going to change anything with the permanent promotion of those 3 persons that are going to be in there temporary? Does that?
Yeah, our plan would be to promote those roles permanently at the end of the year regardless. If the amendment passes, then it would be an internal and external search. If the amendment did not pass, it would be an internal search.
So playing off of that aspect, with these 3 temporaries, is there potential that those 3 may not all get promoted, that maybe somebody else would be in the mix to be promoted?
They wouldn't be promoted, right? They still would be captains, right? And they would be in an acting basis. And then at the end of the year, we would fill those roles permanently. So it could be those individuals, it could be other individuals. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, just being sure, those 3 necessarily aren't going to be guaranteed that they would be the deputy chiefs at the end of the process?
No.
Okay. So is there, if I may, Mr. Chair, I want to ask off of this. So we talked the numbers with the 4 deputy chiefs, 11 captains, 20 lieutenants, 67 sergeants, and how many uniform members?
Budgeted, I believe, for 387.
Okay, so these are all the budgeted numbers. Of these numbers, how low are we in each of these spots? What are we missing in these spots?
I think currently we have 44 recruits. I believe we're roughly around 328 officers, so that pushes probably right around 470. Sergeants, we're a few low on that, probably around 63. Lieutenants, I think we're probably at 17. Captains, we're at 9, and deputy chiefs, we're at 1.
Okay, so here's what I'm looking, this is the reason I'm asking. So the three that are going to come up after the promotion. So that the promotion's going to take one captain, and then the three temporaries are going to take three more captains. So we're going to be down to how many captains at that point?
So I think the plan next week is to do one deputy chief, 2 permanent captains, 2 permanent lieutenants. So that would kind of fill us to that number where we're currently at the lieutenant and captain. We'd be at full strength with those permanent promotions next week, and then acting would move up from there. So we would be a little bit low at that captain rank at that point.
Because, that's what I'm looking at, is the domino effect, because if we take so many up to one rank, then it brings up from the next rank and so on and so forth. And eventually, I'm assuming that it would go down to a patrol officer that would be an acting sergeant, or not?
No, we're not talking about doing promotions or doing buyouts for captains or lieutenants yet. We're mindful of the fact that summer staffing is a challenge, right? And we also have these cadets that are graduating in September. And so the goal would be, I think, to get through the summer before we would consider doing buyouts for any of those lower ranks. Either way, we are going to have to promote additional deputy chiefs right now. One day I was looking at the org chart, and I really don't understand how the folks have done it, frankly, the last few months, and even into the end of last year, with not sufficient numbers of deputy chiefs overseeing these large subdivisions. And so I think that's important. But yeah, there may be a handful of people in acting capacities, but a broader change with lieutenants and captains would have to wait.
Okay. The only reason I'm really asking is because at some place in this chart, there's going to be some vacated positions where it's going to create a higher demand on folks, and that's a concern for me. So that's all I'm bringing up. Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Councilwoman Connor?
Thank you. First of all, I'm glad we're taking time on this. This is a lot in a little bit of space. And my initial thought was, having been down here for just a short time, I have heard consistently how we're understaffed, but now we're talking about buying out staff. I don't understand how that, I see the idea, but it seems like a not great way to do things. If we've been short-staffed for so long, and now we're figuring out how to buy people out, I just think that sends a mixed message to our city, our residents, and $400,000 is a lot of money when we have so many other things to do.
The one point I would make, Councilwoman, is that part of the issue that we see is people leaving the force entirely and going to other departments. And I would suggest that in part that's because people don't see an opportunity to advance. And so this, I think, in some ways could help stem that. We see a number of just unplanned departures every year. And so I don't think understaffing is solely a cause. It's not solely because we don't have enough people. It's also because we need to provide people an opportunity to advance through the ranks.
And I appreciate the thinking and trying new things. And that's why I'm glad we're taking time.
Yep.
Thank you. Moving on, a few more questions here to be respectful of everybody's time. Councilwoman Linda Mobian was first, and then we'll go with James Hardy.
I guess I'm feeling badly because I don't think James has spoken yet. So if you want to take him before me, that's fine, unless you want me to just go ahead.
Just go ahead. You got the mic.
Okay. Thank you. This is to the mayor. I realize that as things change, as culture changes, and as you try to create a different kind of working atmosphere, that some people may want to stay and some may not. I may be able to adjust and some may not be able to. I guess my real concern is whenever you do something like this, you're truly creating a precedent that and this is my primary concern, is that it's a voluntary kind of separation, and people can request a voluntary separation for any reason, and can only think of a few that really troubles me, that trouble me more than anything. What I would like for us to think about is using the authority that we already have to create some acting roles for promotions, recognizing that people may or may not stay in those positions. They take the risk, but that to me creates more of an immediate opportunity to change thinking. And you only have a limited number of promotions in any organization. As you move up, it gets narrower and narrower in terms of how far you can go. But, acting this, acting lieutenant, acting chief, acting deputy, acting whatever, you can create those. I think you have the authority to do that. I'm just really concerned about us giving the okay to somebody who's sitting there saying that, there's something about this I don't like anymore, and I want to just leave. You know, there has to be another way to address that for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hart.
Mr. Lombardo, I just want to clarify that this did not come from anybody. This did not come from any individual. This is something that the administration is putting forward. And again, is a voluntary way, and respect the service of each individual.
Thank you. Councilman James Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate you, Mayor, bringing this, and would second the gratitude that we're taking time. My only question is sort of piggybacking off the precedent thread. So let's say we do this, and someone else down the road at any rank says, you know what, this isn't working out for me. I would like a voluntary separation. And the administration at that time does not agree. Would we open ourselves up to litigation by not granting it to them if we grant the cases?
I think I know the answer, but because I'm not acting as a lawyer in this capacity, I would ask our law director or deputy law director to answer that.
No, I don't think we're creating a precedent by doing this. I mean, obviously, we've used the method by which we've done it in the past to create the framework for doing it going forward, but it doesn't mean we have to offer it if somebody comes and says, pretty please, I'd like to leave. The response there is, fine, you're welcome to, but we're not going to offer you any incentive to do so.
And if I can just add, I think one thing I just want to make clear is that this is not an accommodation for any one individual. This is truly the administration thinking about what's in the best interest of the department, not trying to accommodate somebody's request or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And lastly, we're going to go with Council. Oh, I'm sorry, didn't do. Councilman DeShazier, go ahead. You haven't spoke yet.
Yeah, this is just an education for me, but the person who's in the drop program, as I understand it, you get to the end of that, and that's just basically saying that you've retired from the system, the entire system of Ohio. Now, so if we do this with the buyout, are drops still available for them if they go to maybe another department or whatever? How does that work out? And what do we owe that individual when he leaves in that particular case?
Again, if they were to leave, once they leave our employment, we have no further pension obligation to any individual. If someone were to do, at that point, transfer, they would be eligible to continue to drop at a different department.
Thank you. Councilman Fusco?
Appreciate the fact that we're looking at new directions, modernizing, looking at new ways of doing business. Always appreciate that. But with all respect, sometimes it's good to bring someone who, does this all the time, just as a recommendation, just as an idea. That's one idea. And the other idea is, I think we have some experience in terms of interim whenever it's not kind of whenever we have interims and we don't have a plan in place, because we had seen that, of course, a while back in the fire side of things. Whereas it was an extended time frame of interims, and I think that depletes the morale piece of it. I know it does. And so that planning needs to go into it, that needs to be part of the scope, and so on and so forth. So that's what I'm saying is that really needs to be kind of a focus in terms of that plan and how it looks, and making sure that we get approvals for everything so the interim can move on. And so that's all. Thanks.
Very good. Okay, thank you. So a lot of discussion, good discussion. There'll be time. I'm going to ask the committee in a second here for time, but in the short term, thank you for your time. Congratulations on your promotion. Mayor, thank you. Mike Wheeler, thank you for being here. And with that, can I ask the committee for a motion for time?
Motion to refer.
Motion to refer?
Second.
And I got a second. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Put that for time. With that, our Budget and Finance Committee is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
That is the final committee meeting of the day. Council will meet at 6:30 in regular session. Thank you. We will also have a 4 o'clock caucus.